Indian Wells 2026 hit different. Everything you need to know. Indian Wells 2026 hit different. That's the only honest way to open this. By the time the last ball had been struck in the California desert, Jannik Sinner had officially completed hardcourt tennis. Every major hardcourt title now locked in the cabinet at age 24, a feat no man had ever pulled off before turning 30. California dreams came true in the most complete, dominant, nerve-shredding way possible. But this tournament wasn't just about the Italians' historic achievement. It was about the chaos that surrounded it on all sides. We had prime Daniil Medvedev going absolutely off on everyone in his path, dismantling Alcaraz in the semis, pushing Sinner to the limit in the final, and reminding the entire tour that when this version of Medvedev shows up, there is no easy match. We had a VAR drama that split the tennis internet clean down the middle, with the Draper Medvedev hindrance call generating more debate than any officiating moment in recent memory. I do feel a bit hard done by because I didn't think that it distracted him enough to lose the point. That quote is going to live rent-free in tennis conversations for years. And on the women's side, we quietly watched the early chapters of what looks like a brand new Big Two rivalry forming between Aryna Sabalenka and Elena Rybakina. In a week where the brutal desert conditions spared absolutely nobody, oppressive heat, courts that played two different speeds between day and night, both tours went all out in tennis paradise. The upsets were real, the meltdowns were real, the history-making moments were very real, and the storylines that emerged from this 1 week are going to define the shape of the rest of the season. We're breaking it all down in this deep dive. The men's final, the women's final, the hindrance controversy, the Fonseca hype, the Iga crisis, the American problem, the Medvedev renaissance, and everything in between. Before we get into it, if this kind of detailed, honest tennis analysis is what you're here for, hit subscribe and join the Tennis Insider family. It's free, it takes 2 seconds, and it makes sure you never miss a breakdown like this one again. Former top 10 players get humbled, Tsitsipas, Hurkacz, and the brutal first round. Former top 10 guys kicked things off in the desert, and honestly, it wasn't pretty for many of them. The opening rounds of Indian Wells 2026 read less like a Masters 1000 draw and more like a reckoning for a generation of players whose best days are quietly sliding behind them. The first and most visible casualty was Stefanos Tsitsipas, who showed up at a Masters 1000 as an unseeded player for the first time since 2018. That stat alone tells a story. Drawing Denis Shapovalov in round 1 was quite literally the worst possible outcome for someone trying to rebuild confidence and ranking points. Steph got steamrolled in the opening set, clawed his way back to level it, and then completely fell apart in the decider. Safe to say the Greek is already marking clay season on his calendar in permanent marker. Then there's the Stefanos and Apostolos dynamic, which has officially crossed from quirky family quirk into active liability. The constant back and forth between Stefanos and his father after literally every single point, win or lose, tense or comfortable, earned Tsitsipas a code violation during the match. A code violation because of your own support box. That is a genuinely new level of self-sabotage. At some point, that dynamic needs a reset because it's not helping his on-court focus and it's becoming a story that overshadows his actual tennis.
Elsewhere, Hurkacz got bounced by Kovacevic in 2 tight tiebreakers, then dropped down to a challenger to find form and lost again to Mattia Bellucci. Hubie is now 1-7 across all competitions since his United Cup win at the start of the year. For anyone who thought he turned a corner in Sydney, pump the brakes hard. Whatever momentum he had has evaporated. The one silver lining is that Kovacevic finally ended a brutal 15-match losing streak at the Masters 1000 level, a monkey that had been on his back for far too long. And Marin Cilic somehow fired 17 aces in 2 sets of tennis and still couldn't hold off the ridiculous angles Zachary Svajda was cooking up. That match was wild, old school power versus new school geometry, and the geometry won convincingly. The first round delivered the message clearly: the tour has moved on, and the former stars who haven't evolved are getting left behind. Musetti's painful return, Djokovic's encouraging fight, and the round of 16. Fast forward to round 2, where anticipation was high and the results were again a mixed bag. Andrei Rublev and Karen Khachanov both rolled in late to Indian Wells and both crashed out in their openers, no real surprise given the lack of match rhythm both men were carrying. But the standout clash of the day was undeniably Khachanov versus Joao Fonseca, a match we'll come back to in serious detail. Khachanov held 2 match points in the second set tiebreak and simply could not cash either one. That's the kind of moment that defines a young career, and Fonseca came through it. Lorenzo Musetti's return from injury was the storyline that hurt the most to watch. His opener against Popyrin was his first competitive match since picking up that frustrating injury in January, and the rust showed everywhere. Popyrin ran away with the second set, and you could see it in real time. Musetti's timing was off, his movement hesitant, his confidence clearly still being rebuilt. The stinger is what Musetti had been before the injury, a player who completely outplayed Djokovic in Melbourne and was finally cracking the code of hardcourt tennis at the very highest level. Now he has to rebuild from scratch, and he has over 2,000 ranking points to defend during clay season. That's a genuinely difficult situation. Djokovic's campaign offered a more encouraging read, all things considered. In his first tournament back since the Australian Open, Novak battled through consecutive 3-setters against Machak and Kovacevic just to reach the round of 16. The first time he'd gotten that far at Indian Wells in 9 years. Those matches weren't pretty, but they were Novak, grinding, fighting, finding a way. He has since pulled out of Miami with a right shoulder issue, but the motivation was clear. He's not fading gracefully. He's coming back. The fire is still there, burning as hot as ever, even when the body refuses to fully cooperate. That's the Djokovic story in 2026, and it's still worth watching very closely. Draper dethrones Djokovic, and the hindrance call that broke the internet. Defending champion Jack Draper got the reward for beating Djokovic that his level deserved, a quarterfinal with Daniil Medvedev. But the match was immediately and completely swallowed by a single controversial moment. Check whether or not Mr. Draper made a sign during the rally. That sentence went around the world. Let's break down exactly what happened and why the conversation around it matters far beyond just this one match. From what the footage shows, Draper appeared to think the ball was out and made a gesture toward Medvedev and the chair umpire, a kind of "what's going on" signal. The rule is unambiguous. You cannot do that while a point is live.
Any action or signal that could communicate to your opponent that the point might be over qualifies as a hindrance. On a strict reading of the rulebook, the VAR confirmation was technically defensible. But here's where the credibility falls apart entirely. Medvedev claimed he didn't go for the next ball because of the sign. Yet the footage shows Medvedev hitting a forehand down the line after the alleged distraction, and then the rally continued for 7 more shots before he netted a backhand. Only after losing the point did Medvedev call for the review. You cannot engage with a rally for 7 shots, lose it on your own error, and then retroactively decide you were distracted. That's not what the hindrance rule is designed for. The rule exists to protect players from genuine, real-time interference, not to serve as a damage control option after a missed shot. Draper's reaction was measured and fair. I do feel a bit hard done by because I didn't think that it distracted him enough to lose the point. That's the heart of the issue. Was there a technical infringement? Perhaps. Does the timing of the call destroy its credibility? Absolutely. The ATP needs to introduce a requirement that hindrance claims be raised immediately, not 7 shots later. Until that change is made, controversies like this will keep happening, and confidence in officiating will keep eroding.
Zverev's S-final run and the Sinner code he cannot crack. World number 4 Alexander Zverev had a quietly excellent tournament that deserves more recognition than it's getting, given how completely the Sinner-Medvedev final narrative absorbed all available attention. Zverev became only the 5th player in ATP history to reach the semifinal at each of the 9 current Masters 1000 events. Think about how difficult that is. 9 tournaments, 9 different surfaces, 9 different draws, 9 different pressure cookers, and Zverev has been deep at all of them. That level of consistency across the full breadth of the calendar is extraordinary and frankly underappreciated. His week built beautifully. A dominant opener against Berrettini where he dropped only 6 service points all match. A tough but controlled 3-setter against Nakashima. Straight set wins over Fritz and Arthur Fields where the upgraded forehand aggression was on full display. Zverev came into Indian Wells with a clear directive: be more aggressive from the first strike, stop waiting for opponents to hand him openings, and he executed it consistently enough to reach the last 4. The Sinner semifinal was where the code failed again. Zverev came out swinging, winning his first 8 service points, controlling the tempo, looking like the aggressor. Then Sinner made the adjustment. He dropped back in the return position, started absorbing Zverev's pace, and dragged the German into longer grinding rallies where Sinner's consistency and depth simply wore him down. Meanwhile, Sinner was drilling 24 of 29 first serves, a number that eliminates the one variable that might have given Zverev a foothold in the return games. When Sinner's first serve is landing at that percentage, there are no free points anywhere. 6 straight losses to Sinner. That's not a bad run of results anymore. It's a pattern, and patterns at this level are tactical and mental in equal measure. Zverev needs to bring something genuinely new to their next encounter, something Sinner hasn't solved yet. Because right now, the Italian reads Zverev's patterns earlier than Zverev does. That's the gap, and it won't close without a fundamental change in approach. Fonseca mania is real, the teenager who held 3 set points against Sinner. Before Sinner got to Zverev, he had to go through Joao Fonseca.
And if Fonseca hadn't saved those 2 match points against Khachanov in the opening round, none of what followed would have happened. That near exit in round 1 makes everything that came after even more remarkable. What followed the Khachanov escape was an absolute demolition of Tommy Paul, a seasoned, experienced, former top 10 player, in a match that signaled something important about Fonseca's development. The most visible improvement in Fonseca's game is his defense and footwork, which had historically been the clearest weakness in his arsenal. He was turning points around that he would have let go completely a year ago. There's a new willingness to grind, to construct points rather than just attack, and to defend even when he's off balance. Watching him against Tommy Paul, you could see the tactical evolution clearly. This is no longer a teenager bashing every ball as hard as possible and hoping it lands. He's thinking, he's choosing, he's building. That's the sign of a player genuinely growing, not just winning. Then came the Sinner match, which was as close a chess game as Sinner has played all year. Fonseca went toe-to-toe from the baseline, forced the first set into a tiebreak, and held 3 set points. 3 set points against the world number 1 in what was essentially his first major test at this level. Sinner won 5 consecutive points to close it out, because of course he did. Then Fonseca broke Sinner to love in the second set, forcing another tiebreak and losing again only by the narrowest of margins. I think the level is still there, of course, and I can play against him. That quote from Fonseca after the match is the most confident and accurate assessment of the situation. Fonseca mania is real and fully justified. With a bit more experience in handling pressure on the biggest points, he can be right there at the very top of this sport. He and Learner 10 are developing at a pace that is genuinely rare, and the tour is going to look very different in 2 years because of it. The American problem: wide, shallow, and no one pushing the very top. Let's talk about the American men, because the picture at Indian Wells was both encouraging in individual pockets and structurally concerning as a whole.
Learner 10 was the undisputed standout of the week for the U.S. contingent. He took down Ben Shelton in a statement win, though to be completely fair to Shelton, the guy looked absolutely done in, like he was either about to pass out or throw up at any moment. Props to Ben for hanging in as long as he did under those conditions. 10 then saved 2 match points against Davidovich Fokina to record the 10th top 20 win of his career, becoming the youngest American to reach a Masters 1000 quarterfinal since his own coach, Michael Chang, did it decades ago. Unfortunately, 10 ran into Sinner in the quarters and got blown out of the water. That's not a failure. That's what happens when you meet the best player in the world in a major quarterfinal. The result doesn't diminish what 10 achieved getting there. His development is real, his mindset is right, and the ceiling is genuinely very high. But then you look at the rest of the pack, and the story is the same one we keep coming back to. Fritz had a quiet exit against Michelsen in straights, and his year has been genuinely horrendous on the return. Compounding the tactical issues is the constant knee tendonitis that simply doesn't respond well to extended rest, making Fritz's situation both frustrating and structurally difficult to fix. Sebastian Korda couldn't make it past the round of 64, losing to de Minaur in 3 sets, though someone has finally talked him into going for more on the forehand side, which is a small but meaningful positive.
The overall verdict is the same headline it's been for years. American men's tennis is wide but shallow. There are seeded players, there are respectable results, there are flashes of brilliance. But there is no man right now genuinely pressing Sinner, Alcaraz, or even the tier just below them on a consistent basis. 10 is the best hope, and Fonseca, who isn't American but is competing in the same generational wave, is the clearest proof of what's possible. The pressure is on the U.S. development system to find the next gear. The court conditions story and how Medvedev ended Alcaraz's perfect year. Court conditions became one of the defining talking points of the entire week, and it's a more nuanced conversation than it might initially appear. The Indian Wells hardcourts, which are notoriously slow and heavy, were sped up this year. But the really fascinating wrinkle was how dramatically conditions changed between day and night sessions. The courts were meaningfully slower after dark, slower enough that players were essentially competing in 2 different tournaments depending on when their match was scheduled. That kind of variance creates genuine unfairness in a draw, and it's something the tournament needs to address. The faster daytime conditions played a significant role in Medvedev's stunning semi-final victory over Alcaraz. On a hot afternoon in the California desert, Medvedev activated a version of himself the tour hasn't seen in 2 years. Alcaraz came in on a 16-0 start to the year, something very few players throughout the history of the sport can claim, and with a 34-match outdoor hardcourt winning streak. All of that came to an end in the desert heat. Medvedev's game plan was precise: make the rallies relentlessly physical, force Alcaraz to burn energy on every single point, and go aggressively for his own shots rather than waiting. Over half of Medvedev's forehands were hit at 80 miles per hour or above. He won both the short exchanges and the extended rallies. Alcaraz seized momentum with an early break in the second set, but Medvedev was defiant and kept applying pressure. By the tiebreak, Carlos's tank was visibly empty. After the match, Alcaraz said something remarkable: "I've never seen Daniil playing like this before." When the world #1 tells you he's never seen an opponent at that level, that is not a normal result. That's prime Medvedev, reassembled. The final decoded: how Sinner completed hardcourt tennis at 24. It wasn't the Sinner-Alcaraz final we were all hoping for, but Sinner versus Medvedev, 2 players who had each gone through the entire draw without dropping a set, a feat not seen at Indian Wells since Djokovic and Federer did it in 2015, delivered something genuinely special. Sinner was trying to complete hardcourt tennis at 24, a feat no man had achieved before turning 30. Medvedev was trying to finally win the puzzle piece that had eluded him. High stakes from both sides, and both men showed up for it. Medvedev's game plan was clear from the first game: force backhand-to-backhand exchanges by going down the line with his forehand. He is the only player in the top 20 who hits more backhands than forehands, and the strategy largely paid off. Sinner accumulated 11 backhand unforced errors to Medvedev's 5. More surprisingly, Medvedev upped the miles per hour on his forehand to match Sinner's pace and hit with exceptional depth, preventing the Italian from going full throttle on his preferred wing. For long stretches, Sinner couldn't take control of the forehand exchanges the way he normally does. The decisive moment came at 5-4 in the first set tiebreak.
Sinner hit a poor forehand drop shot. Medvedev drove a backhand down the line and came into the net, and then inexplicably let Sinner's forehand passing shot go when he was in a position to put it away. Sinner held his nerve, maintained his clutch serving, and took the set. In the second, Medvedev kept fighting. Sinner double faulted and found himself 4-0 down in the tiebreak. But Medvedev's first serve deserted him at the worst possible moment, and Sinner reeled off 7 consecutive points to clinch the title. The final numbers: 91% of first serve points won, 28 winners, 10 for 12 at the net, and a 7 centimeters improvement in serve placement compared to his 52-week average, which sounds tiny, but at this level is a seismic shift. The way Sinner held up physically through the brutal desert heat all week was also a step forward in durability. California dreams come true. History made. Sabalenka wins, Rybakina rises, and the new Big Two taking over the WTA. While the men's storylines dominated most of the headlines, the women's side of the draw delivered its own historic chapter and quietly set up what looks increasingly like the defining rivalry of the next era of women's tennis. The Americans came in as genuine contenders. They left empty-handed and injury-hit. Coco Gauff retired in the third round with a sharp pain in her left forearm. Amanda Anisimova got blown out in straights by Mira Andreeva, whose aggressive returning was simply too good. Emma Navarro ran into the Elena Rybakina freight train in the quarterfinals and had no answers for Elena's clutch serving and clean flat hitting. And Venus Williams, 30 years on from her Indian Wells debut, lost in the opener to Diane Parry and is now 0-5 in 2026. The wildcard conversation about Venus is worth its own deep dive, and there's a separate video coming on exactly that. Mira Andreeva's week was painful to watch for different reasons. At just 18 years old, she is now in real danger of dropping out of the top 10 after failing to defend her 2 WTA 1000 titles from last year. The racket smashing, the cursing, the spiral of negative body language feeding into itself, these are not just bad optics, they're performance killers. The issue isn't losing your cool in the moment. Every player does that. The issue is the inability to hit the reset button, to absorb the pain and compete on the next point. That's the next developmental step for Andreeva, and it's not a small one. Iga Swiatek's situation is genuinely alarming. After going down to Svitolina in the quarterfinals, Iga has now lost 5 consecutive matches against top 10 opponents, the first time that has ever happened in her career. Since the 2024 Olympics, she is 12-15 against top 10 players. From 2022 through those Olympics, she was 37-12. That drop-off is not a blip. Players are no longer afraid of her. They're coming after her, and she's struggling to hold them off. Swiatek may genuinely need to go back to the drawing board, but the final was the week's true masterpiece. Sabalenka, 81 consecutive weeks at world #1, but with a string of heartbreaking final losses on her record, finally got it done. She saved a championship point against Rybakina and closed with 3 fearless all-or-nothing swings. Her 10th WTA 1000 title, her 20th hardcourt title, her 23rd career title. Meanwhile, Rybakina is officially the new world #2 for the first time in her career. Sabalenka versus Rybakina is beginning to look exactly like the women's answer to Sinner and Alcaraz, 2 elite players trading blows at the top, raising the standard for everyone else. Is 2026 the year Rybakina becomes #1? Miami will tell us more. For everything that happens next, stay locked in with Tennis Insider. Hit subscribe so you don't miss a thing as this season unfolds.